Roll. Okay. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We have a really exciting webinar with lots of amazing guest speakers to share incredible programs that you can implement into your library that are related to the iREAD summer reading program this year. It's Plant to Seed Read. And as a total plant nerd myself, I am incredibly excited about this season, this summer's theme. But just a couple of housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and you can access the recording on the StarNet YouTube channel. If you have to leave or if you would like to share this recording with any of your colleagues, you will be able to access it later. And anytime you want to ask a question, please just pop it in the chat. Make sure you are addressing your chat to everyone, not just panelists and hosts, because we want everyone to be part of the conversation. All right, so just a quick welcome to all of our guest speakers. So we have the StarNet team here. I'm Claire Ratcliffe-Adams. I'm an education associate at the Space Science Institute, and I'm joined here by Brooks Mitchell, who's also an education associate, and Annie Holland, who is our fearless leader, the director of the Education and Learning Research Group. And I'm also thrilled to be here today with Becca Boland. She is the iREAD Content and Development Manager with the iREAD program. Kristen Weaver, who is going to be talking about Globe Observer Tree, their citizen science project that you can implement in your programs relating to Plant to Seed Read, and Gemma Peterson from the Fairchild Tropical Botanic Garden. She is the coordinator for Growing Beyond Earth. So she's going to share a little bit about that amazing program, about how we're researching how to grow plants beyond Earth and the cool projects and experiments they're doing and the future opportunities that libraries can have to join that project. All right, so we have a packed agenda today. We're going to lead you through a quick icebreaker in true StarNet fashion. Then Becca is going to give an overview of the 2026 summer reading theme. Annie is going to give a NASA highlight about Artemis moon trees. And then we're going to learn about the Globe Observer Trees app. Another highlight, Growing Beyond Earth. And then we're going to showcase a couple of StarNet hands-on activities. These are things that relate to the summer theme, or you can do in future years if gardening and plants are something you want to continue doing. We will finally end with a discussion and Q&A, and that'll be it. All right, so I would love to hear from you. Please share in the chat. What is the most unique plant you have ever grown? Like I said, a total plant nerd, and I love to hear what people are growing from different regions. I'm out here in Boulder, Colorado. It's very dry, it's very arid. We have to be very intentional about what we plant. So I don't get to do cool things like birds of paradise or anything like that unless I had a greenhouse. But I'd love to hear what are some crazy, unique, unusual plants that you might have grown or a friend has grown? And Brooks, I might have you read some of those out because for some reason
Sure,
I
sure.
am having trouble accessing the chat.
Let's see. Annie says she tried to grow passion fruit. Keyword tried. Let's see. Variegated strawberries on accident. That's from Gemma.
Oh,
Mindy says aloe vera. Nice. I could use some of that in the summertime.
oh, sorry.
Ooh,
Back.
tomatillo.
I have grown tomatillos before. They grew very well when I lived in Utah. That's awesome. Brooks, I know you've grown some plants that don't usually grow up here in Colorado
Yeah, yeah,
from
we
your
do.
southern roots.
Me and my wife are from the South originally, so we do a lot of okra, which is fun to grow, and it does pretty well out here. And then we have a rhododendron, but we have to keep it in the shady corner of the yard. Let's see. My AD Daisy is here with me. Grew mother of thousands. Kristen says I had a fun-shaped cactus I grew in a pot once, but it was a gift, and I have no idea what kind of cactus it was. Oh, a corpse flower. Those are the real stinky ones, right? That's from Heather. A Christmas cactus. How holly and jolly. Um, Vivian says I can't keep anything alive. Unfortunately, I've tried lavender and lemon balm. Well, keep at it. I don't know.
Awesome.
We planted raspberries 2 or 3 years ago, and I don't think we realized quite how much they spread. So this year we're having to remove some raspberries. Um, Habanero chilies. I'll stay away from those. It's from Gianna.
Oh, did I just stop sharing? No, it's
No,
still
you're
there.
good.
Okay. Okay, great. I found the chat. Awesome. Great. Well, thanks. I'd always like to know what people are growing, what they, what is their favorite thing. I did live in Maui for 1 year and it was incredible. I think I didn't plant this, but we had star fruit trees.
Ooh.
That was super amazing. You just pick them right off of I didn't know that's how they grew. Like they're just like apples and you pick them off the tree and you just bite into them. So amazing. Yeah, I love star fruit. I have not eaten one since I moved back and I do miss them. So great. Okay, well, let's move on. Thank you so much for participating in that. I'm going to turn it over to Becca to share a little bit about the 2026 iRead Summer Reading Program.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for including me in this webinar. I'm beyond delighted to be here. We are very excited about this summer. The theme is Plant a Seed, Read, just like Claire said. And it's a farm to table kind of concept. When we were discussing it, we had kind of two camps. One camp wanted to do food and another camp wanted to do farms and like farm animals. And someone at some point in the discussion said, "Hey, do you know where food comes from?" So we decided that kind of the farm to table would cover both things and really open up the opportunity for folks to explore um, the entire kind of process of planting and growing and then taking that and using it to nourish ourselves. So if we could go to the next slide. And that is reflected in our mission statement, which that Plant a Seed Read is rooted in the concept of farm to table. A farm grows food that nourishes our bodies, and a library grows ideas that nourish our minds. Both food and stories connect us to family, culture, economy, and ecology. iREAD 2026, Plant a Seed Read will provide a context for exploring culture, history, science, health, and human connection. And just really quickly, for those of you who have your resource guide handy, you're going to find a lot of what's discussed today in that resource guide. They were very kind to share those resources with us so that we could share them with you. They'll be in the program section, pages 319 to 233, which doesn't make sense. So I'm guessing that's actually 219 to 233 because that's how numbers work. So I apologize for that. But in that general area of your program guide or your resource guide is where you're going to find the program info. All right, I'm ready to learn. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Thanks, Becca. I'm going to turn it over to Annie now to talk to you about moon trees, which I only just learned about recently. So I'm excited to learn more as well.
Awesome. Yeah, the first thing when Becca said what the theme was for this year, the first thing I yelled was, "Oh my gosh, moon trees!" And everyone looked at me like I'd lost my mind, which is probably accurate. So back in the Apollo era, more than a half century ago, NASA astronauts took seeds provided them by the Department of Agriculture Forest Services up into lunar orbit. So it was one, just kind of a cool thing one of the astronauts who was a smoke jumper wanted to do, but it was also an experiment. Would tree seeds that had made it up to space and been irradiated, would they still grow when they got planted? So the Forest Service, or the Agricultural Forest Services, distributed those seeds to monuments and individuals around the entire world. Those all got planted. Most of the trees grew. Many of them are still standing today. And as a nod to Apollo 14, which is the mission that did that, the Artemis program, which is the current lunar mission, has done the same thing. So museums, schools, and public libraries all across the country were chosen to host these seeds. most of them came from the earlier Artemis missions, so the seeds have already been planted. And I'm going to put these links that you see on this slide in the chat so you can go check out. But there is, as long as your state or territory applied, there is a tree in every state and every territory. You should be able to find one near you, highlight it to your patrons. But it's really cool to talk about in the context of the activities that everyone else is going to share further on in the webinar. So just wanted to point out that NASA has done this and that these are things in your state that you're able to go take a look at.
Great. Thank you, Annie. Awesome. Okay, I am now going to turn it over to Kristen Weaver to talk about the Globe Observer Trees project that you can get involved with as well.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, if you want to go, so the Globe Observer app is part of this larger program called the Globe program, which you already heard referenced before. So it's been around for 30 years, over 30 years, and we have 127 countries involved right now. And so it's a way to collect data and upload the observations to a freely accessible database. So it's all environmental science data collection of different sorts. So if you want to go to the next slide. And then the Globe Observer app that you saw another picture of earlier is the app of the Globe program. And so we have multiple ways to collect data. You can see sort of the 4 Globe Observer tools here: clouds, mosquito habitat mapper, land cover, and trees, which I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of trees here in a moment. But there's also actually available now, we've made some changes in the Globe program over the last year, and there's actually more data entry available than just these that's now available with just some pretty just reviewing some of the requirements online. But so this is the app that goes along with it. So if you want to go to the next slide. But the basic premise of the Globe Observer app is that NASA has this unique view of Earth from space, but your view from the ground is also unique as well. So you can add to this Earth science data using the Globe Observer app. And we're actually working on some of the transitions the Globe program is going through, is actually putting some tighter connections between the Globe data and some of the newer NASA satellite missions that are launching. So we're working on that even tighter connection. So next slide, if you want to, so talking about trees. Now, obviously, if you just plant a seed now, you're not going to be able to measure it with, but trees are really important. I measure the tree with that app tool, but trees are really important. And actually, you know, these are slides that I actually that were prepared by one of our graphic designers, but you can see that it references the moon trees that Anne was just talking about. So one of the things we did with the app a couple years ago when they were launching those seeds on Artemis was try to get people to go out and use the trees tool to measure some of these moon trees that are around the country. A lot of the Artemis trees are still too small because they're pretty short to measure. The idea is that it should be about 15 feet, 10 or 15 feet tall before you start measuring the trees. But this photo here is the moon tree, the Apollo moon tree that is near the Goddard Visitor Center, the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center Visitor Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. And so we actually have some measurements of some of these moon trees that are in our database, and there's some information on our website about how we did that. We did a specific sort of data campaign that's not active anymore, but you can always go and measure trees. So if you go to the next slide. So this is the trees tool in the app. So again, you know, the idea of planting seeds, these trees are not going to be able to be measured right now, but you could go out to a park or trees near your library or wherever that is. But the idea is the app takes the angle. So you tilt your phone down at the base of the tree and then up to the top of the tree, and the phone measures the angle. And then you count your steps from your location to the base of the tree. And then based on your height, and the number of steps, it estimates the distance, and then the tree actually does the calculations for you to determine the height of that tree or estimate it. Estimate the height of the tree. So then you can use this, and then you have optionally you can also get a tape measure and measure the circumference of the tree. You can identify the tree species if you'd like, using guides or using some of the online tools like iNaturalist that are out there that help you with photo identification and AI, but you can do some kind of fun things like identifying how much carbon is stored by an individual tree, and thinking about how much carbon, you plant a new tree over its lifespan, how much carbon is it going to store? so I think the final slide that I have is, so that's the basic activity, is going out and measuring trees. We do have it. I think some of our resources are already in your guide, but we've got other resources as well as for some of the other protocols are available in the Observer Toolkit. And I will say, unfortunately, the Observer website is having some issues this morning, but the observer.globe.gov/toolkit, you'll find some different resources and activities related to not just trees, but some of the other protocols. This photo here is one of our more recent activities, but is a really popular one, is a card game to help, based on Uno, that to help people learn the different cloud types. And you can print out your own set of cards for that. So that's it for me, but happy to answer questions if anything comes up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. Yeah, we shipped out, I think, hundreds of those Nube cards. And it is super fun. It's so great to have a game that you already know. It's based off of Uno. You don't have to learn a whole new complicated set of things. So it's great for kids to learn different cloud types. Just super fun game. I love that you guys developed that. So thank you. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Gemma Peterson now to talk about Growing Beyond Earth, a very exciting program. And Jenna, would you like me to stop sharing? I don't know if you have slides. Okay, awesome.
Yep, I have slides. I'm more than happy to share my screen if that's okay.
That works great. All right, I will stop my share.
All right, my screen should be up now, my little mouse wiggling around.
Yes.
Perfect. So hi everyone, my name is Gemma. I am the Growing Beyond Earth Program Coordinator here in the heart of Miami, Florida at Fairchild Tropical Botanic Garden. We're the only partnership between a garden and the NASA Kennedy Space Center, and what we do is a variety of different things that all boils down to being able to grow plants in space. And we primarily work with classrooms, but we're excited to try and expand this into different ways. It's built around classroom style, but we can work with it. The whole purpose beyond Growing Beyond Earth is in three basic parts. We want to be able to expand the crop diversity that is currently sent to space, and plants have been grown in space for food since 2014. We have joined them since 2015, so we're in our 10th year, but there are so many different plants here on Earth that could qualify to grow in space, but there needs to be people to test them. And there's only so much time at Kennedy Space Center. If you want to test hundreds of different kinds of plants, you've got to outsource a little bit. And we are very fortunate in that we have classrooms all over the world doing this research with us. And the benefit of having multiple classrooms do it is that you can see over distances, over different environments, over different conditions, you can see which plants survive all of those things. You're looking for robust plants. And so kids are contributing to actual real world science. And we take all of this data and we give it to the NASA Kennedy Space Center so they can do some of the harder tests required before a plant flies in space and gets eaten by an astronaut. On top of that, being able to grow plants in a classroom really helps get kids interested in botany. When I was in school, botany was not the most interested thing. I was learning about xylem and phloem, photosynthesis, and that just wasn't practical for me. It wasn't something I truly cared about. But this kind of program where you have that practical application gets students interested in why plants are important here on Earth. Why are they important for your diet? Why are they important nutritionally? Why are they important just having them in your house? And this helps get kids set up successfully to care about plants so they hopefully try and grow more things and incorporate them into their day-to-day lives. And then, of course, because this is scientific research, we want kids to become explorers and scientists and contribute to this next wave of STEM out there. And actually, in this picture, we have a photo of a student doing the Growing Beyond Earth project in an older version of our kits, compared to Dr. Shannon Walker, who has flown on the ISS and was doing a very similar experiment in the veggie unit. So they get to see kind of side-by-side research, maybe not at the exact same time, but looking at these ISS missions saying, oh my gosh, that's a plant I grew in my classroom. And what that looks like in a classroom is really broken down into two parts. And again, this can kind of be adapted, especially if we're looking at something like a library system. This is just how it's built right now. But we divide it into two experiments. The first one being what we call prescribed research, or conducting research that we have designed here at Fairchild. And that's typically the basics, like trying different cultivars. If we've identified some potential ones here, we want the classrooms to prove it. And so the first trial is always a 28-day trial, and we want to see how they perform in these different settings, whether that's in a classroom, a library, a school, museum, things like that. I want to see how they do it, and ideally it's students doing the work, students being able to learn how to grow plants from scratch, what they need to set it up, and what plants need to grow, and then at the very end we collect all of the data from that. Ideally, they get so inspired by that trial one that they then want to conduct trial two, and that's original student research. I have no control over what these students are doing, but with this, they get to look at that first experiment and say, what would happen if I changed something? What if I gave it more water? What if my lights were a little different? What if I move its location? What if I try a completely different plant? Then they can conduct that trial, follow the same kind of scientific method that they used the first time, changing one variable, and then they collect the data off of that. They then take that data, what they learned from that experiment, and they present it at the Student Research Symposium. This is something we have annually, where they are taking that research and they're presenting it directly to NASA scientists. It is a one-of-a-kind opportunity. It's super neat, and we get a lot of really cool feedback from the NASA scientists where they're very impressed by the level of scientific work that the students are doing. And so to learn more, we are doing information sessions. They are coming up. The third one, we are hosting it in Spanish as well, and these will all be recorded on our website. And then we do have an application for this program because we follow the typical US school year. So I will have these open on the 1st. We'll close them July 31st, and I'll let participants know whether or not they qualify for free materials. We are able to provide a certain number of free materials traditionally to schools. And that's just a limited pool of that one, but we do offer some that can join just at the cost of the materials themselves. So I would encourage anyone, if they're interested in this program, please come to one of the information sessions or reach out to us directly. You can reach us through our website, that's fairchildgarden.org/GBE, or you can email gbe@fairchildgarden.org. And I would love to talk about how we can incorporate this program into your libraries, into your spaces. Is it okay if I leave this just for a second in case someone wants to scan the QR code?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
So cool. I wish I could do something like this just at my house. I love that you're getting kids excited about botany through just such an exciting new way of thinking about it.
We have a question in the Q&A. Somebody's asking, can public libraries participate?
For this one, our funding does not cover public libraries, but there are ways where we can incorporate GB into public libraries. And so if someone wants to come to these information sessions or talk to me one-on-one, I can work out a plan on how to get this done. We're mostly concerned about having someone who can run the project or who would be doing the project. So I would love to talk to someone about how we can make that work.
Can I just jump in for just a second? Because I was really inspired, Gemma. That's amazing. This would be a great program for summer teen volunteers. A lot of libraries will do a program where teens take on a, excuse me, a particular project, and then they do all the work for it. And, maybe they write a blog post or they make social media posts or something like that, or they have little sessions where other patrons can come in and kind of hear about the work that they're doing. They can kind of present on that. So I think something like that would work really, really well, because then you have a group that is dedicated to this project, and you don't have to worry about, like, at the beginning of the summer, you have a program and everybody's really excited. And then by the end of the summer, it's the librarians doing all of the work. So you could do like a summer long camp, where you say, like, every day you're going to come in from 1 to 3 or whatever, and we're all going to work on this together. I think there's a lot of possibility for library connection with this program.
And it doesn't have to follow the traditional school year. I do work with schools in Australia and Brazil and South Korea where they're not on our school schedule. So we can be flexible with that. That is okay.
That's awesome.
And Gemma, I have a question. Thinking about the multi-generational, like, audience that's typical in libraries. I know if you do this at a school, you have the same age group. But I don't know if this is a question or more of a comment, but when you're like working on how to incorporate this into a library, that might be some considerations as you do that. But I love that we're opening up this channel for libraries to have this opportunity.
Absolutely. We're mostly middle and high school, but I've also worked with fifth graders and adults and college students and
Oh,
all
cool.
sorts of
Okay,
things.
great. Awesome. Amazing. Well, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to put it in that Q&A or the chat. But I'm going to pass it over to Brooks. He's going to showcase one of our StarNet activities that fits very well into everything we've been talking about here.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. Um, which I guess you have to announce every time you share your screen. You have to dictate that and go through it. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about just one activity from our STEM Activity Clearinghouse. You've probably heard our STEM Activity Clearinghouse spiel before. There's 500, 600, I don't know exactly how many activities, hands-on activities that are either designed for the library setting or they've been adapted to be used in the library setting. I'm sure there's a link in our link bank there, and if not, we can drop one in the chat. But the one I want to talk about today is Life on Mars, Nurturing Life, which is I like the title. It's trying to kind of like connect. It's a growing kind of activity. You're going to be growing plants, and it talks about how you can do that with your patrons. But there's a lot of prompts for if you're talking about other planets, right? And so this one's specifically Mars, but kind of those like, what are the conditions on Earth? What do we need for things to grow, to thrive? What's necessary for life? And so it kind of walks you through. There's a lot of resources associated with this. Excuse me. And I wanted to kind of highlight, I know library staff typically don't have a ton of time. You can't sit down for 3 hours and prep for just one activity. So I kind of wanted to walk through what the best approach would be. So here is the entry on the STEM Activity Clearinghouse, right? So we have on our right side kind of who it's designed for, who it would be good with. And in the bottom, there's all these extra resources, some suggested books, and that's kind of standard for our clearinghouse activities. So if you click Open Activity, you'll be directed to a website from the Lunar and Planetary Institute. I believe they're probably the original ones that created this. And it kind of walks you through an overview of the activity, and then some talking points, right? So there's a lot of this supplementary information of like how you can facilitate this, what you can talk about when you're working with your patrons here. So again, there's a big Mars connection with this activity, although you don't necessarily have to do that, right? You can treat this just as a growing activity. There's some tips for engaging girls in STEM. And then we get down to the materials, right? Since this is a growing activity, you're going to be actually growing a plant. There something to keep in mind is kind of your what zone you're in, right? What's your climate? What would actually grow well? I think we make the at some point we're like, hey, we live in Colorado. It wouldn't be good to do this with a coconut tree, right? Um, and if we get down a little bit, there are three options for how to facilitate this. The first option is to do this in an outdoor garden. That's great. Not everybody has an outdoor garden though, so I don't really want to focus on that one. The second option is to do an indoor container garden. Again, I think that's a great option if you have the time. But the one I really want to focus on is this option three, right? So this is a take-home version. You could do this in the library with your patrons, and then they could actually take their gardens home with them. So that is the activity guide, and you could be well set just looking at the activity guide. But I kind of want to go over some more of the resources and show you an illustrated set of instructions that I think are probably the most helpful if you only have 20 minutes to prep for this. The illustrations are probably going to be the easiest thing for you. So if we go back, I just want to highlight this. There is a how-to video for that third option. It's not something we made. It's from a different organization, and they're talking about, again, we're talking about a 2-liter bottle here, making a little garden in a bottle, and that kind of has its own biome and has its own, it's kind of self-sustaining. So that's the how-to video. The implementation guide gives you more, it's just kind of a deeper, see, I think I have this pulled up, a deeper look. So if you do have plenty of time to prep for this, you can look at the implementation guide. But again, I know a lot of y'all are low on time. We also have a teacher's guide, right? So I would only kind of dive into that if you are trying to make connections. Let's say maybe you are a teacher, maybe you're a school librarian. You're trying to make connection to like science standards and things like that, which I know part of the joy of being in a library is that you don't always have to connect to that. You have a little bit more flexibility. So what I would like to highlight now, if you scroll down a little bit, we worked with an illustrator several years back to create an illustrated set of instructions for this. Again, easy to digest, quick. You should be able to facilitate it pretty easily. So let me pull that up, or I already had it pulled up. Um, all right, let me scroll up really quick. Oh, PDFs. All right. So the first step, we do have a few of those just like basic prompts. What is a scientist? What is biology? What is astrobiology, right? You really want to be asking open-ended questions as you're setting people up for this. And then next, you can kind of talk a little bit about like, well, what do we need for life? What are those conditions? We need that oxygen, carbon dioxide kind of transfer. We need shelter. We need water, sunlight, food. That's for any type of life, right? Plants or humans. Um, a little bit more, you can talk a little bit if you want to make that Mars connection. What would it be like on Mars? What would you need to live on Mars? And then we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the activity. So the first step is going to be to select some seeds, or you could do little cutlings. I don't know if that's a word, of plants that would thrive in your area, right? Again, making the connection here. We don't want to do a coconut tree. We don't want to do a banana tree if we live in Colorado or in the Mountain West. The first step is going to be to cut a 2 liter bottle. I guess it could be smaller, but a 2 liter bottle is probably going to be the best option there in half. That could be a safety concern, right? So you might want to do that's something you could prep ahead of time. And next, you're going to pour a little bit of gravel in the bottom of the container. And you can add some soil to your mixture as well. It gives you specific measurements there. In that how-to video, they also mention including some activated charcoal. If you have that, I think that's something you can get at like aquarium supplies stores. But that'll kind of prevent mold from growing. That might make your garden in a bottle last a little bit longer. And then next, plant your seeds according to the package directions. And add about half a cup of water until there's about 1 inch of water in the bottom of the bottle. You can see they're all the illustrated characters are very mesmerized by this. So next, yeah, replace the top of the bottle, put it back on, secure the bottle without a cap in place, and put a piece of tape around it so it kind of stays together. And then take your garden in a bottle home with you. Keep a daily journal of your plant's growth and changes, right? So there's a lot of different versions of this activity that you might be able to find online. This just kind of gives you the idea behind it, how to do this. I think it's great because again, it's something you could do in the library. You could send it home with your patrons, right? So they're always, kind of thinking about, oh, I made this at the library. Maybe I should go back and check out some more programs there. A nice connection to that. Um, again, if you want to do the other options, there's a lot of information there too. I just know that not everybody has the outdoor space for that, or maybe doesn't have the ability to do an indoor container garden as well. But the idea here is again, you're providing all the elements for what a plant would need to succeed, and you can make those connections that hey, those things for plants that plants need are only found on Earth, as far as we know, and it would be a lot more difficult to do something like this on Mars. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooks. We had a couple questions in the chat. Do we have color versions of those illustrations? Unfortunately, we only have the grayscale.
I remember those conversations. It was a little outside of the budget we had at the time.
Yeah, we hired an external graphic designer to do that. And so getting full color was, outside of our budget. But maybe those could be coloring pages for the little kids who are there at the program or something like that. But only available in grayscale. Awesome. Any questions about that activity? Okay. All right, we have one more set of activities to showcase from StarNet, and then we can turn it over to a discussion and Q&A, and we might end a little early, which is great. Love a short webinar. So I'm going to share my screen again. Got to make the official announcement. All right. So I wanted to talk, well, this is pivoting a little bit away from the NASA and the space connection, but we did develop a suite of activities a couple years ago that I just think fit very well into the summer reading theme. So this is our rewilding activity collection. So these are hands-on STEM activities relating to nature. It celebrates biodiversity, really hone observation skills. And these activities were developed in partnership with HHMI's Tangled Bank Studios and SciStarter. So there are some citizen science connections here, and there's also some really cool videos that go along with these activities by Tangled Bank Studios. All right, so there are 4 main activities developed specifically for this rewilding concept. So this is a movement that has been going on for the last few years around converting our manicured lawns back into wild spaces. There are so many ecological benefits to that for plants, for animals, for the natural ecosystem. And so I know out here in Colorado, green lawns aren't what we're supposed to have. It's taking a lot of our water that we don't have very much of to maintain just green grass. And so it's been amazing watching my neighbors converting their lawns back into these xeriscaped environments with native plants that local animals can take shelter in and find food, and all of those elements that that Brooks was just talking about that sustains life. So there is a guide that we made just for patrons. This is something super simple you can print out and just put on the front desk or in the children's area. But this is something families can take home to learn more about how, if they're interested in converting their lawn, or talking with their community about spaces in on their apartment grounds or in their communities. This has step-by-step instructions for how to convert green lawn back into native spaces. This is a really great guide. It also has a glossary at the end that tells what is an invasive species versus a noxious species versus a native species. So it really gets into the nitty-gritty of the different terms. And yeah, really easy. You just print it out and you can hand it out to your community members. There is also a library facilitation guide. If you do have a space in your library that you're like, hey, if I talk, maybe I can talk with the library director, we can talk with the municipality, maybe we can start turning, even if it's just a patch of it, into a little native plant area. There is instructions there for how to do that, and also how to turn that into a program and invite community members to join you on this project to rewild a part of the green space that you might have on your library if that's available. On the next one, there is a sign, an activity or instructions for how to create a sign and put on that rewilding space. And it says this is an ARC. ARC stands for Acts of Restorative Kindness. And in that guide, they have a link to this movement, and you can register your ARC, and become a part of this network across the country. And it's actually across the globe. I think this was originally started in Ireland, but it is this movement, to try to restore pieces of our earth that we have tamed very much, and curated. And the reason why a sign can be really important is for education for other community members who might, they really love their green lawns. This is, that's how they want the aesthetic to look in the neighborhood. If there's an HOA, there's all these barriers sometimes to be able to convert land back into the way it was natively supposed to be. And so there's instructions for how to, put a little bit of information on it. And sometimes during that rewilding process, it can look messy. So this is also an opportunity for folks, who are walking by, not just to be like, oh man, this yard has really been overgrown. What are they doing over there? It's like, no, this is intentional. We are doing this on purpose. It's going to look messy for a few years until the native plants start to take root and really flourish. So just a fun activity idea for folks who want to make sure they're getting the message out there that I'm not just letting my lawn go, I'm doing an ecological restoration. And finally, we did create a BioBlitz guide specifically for doing a BioBlitz in the library. A BioBlitz is where you get a group of people together and you go on a walk, and you record all the different species that you see. So you can have it be just a wide open BioBlitz. We're going to look for anything, bugs, plants, you name it, animals, or you can have it very specific. Today, we are just doing a butterfly BioBlitz walk. The butterflies are migrating through. We're going to go out there and we're going to catalog what we're seeing come through our neighborhood. And there's an option there to upload that onto iNaturalist. So iNaturalist is an incredible app where biologists are taking in that data that citizens are inputting, and they're making sure it's correct. You might not know for sure. You're like, is this a monarch butterfly or a swallowtail butterfly? I'm not sure. You can take a picture, upload it to iNaturalist, and put your best guess as to what it is, and biologists will confirm, or they'll identify that species for you. But it's a great way to keep track of the biodiversity in our communities and our neighborhoods. And that gives scientists a lot of data that they might not otherwise be able to go out and collect to really, monitor the health of our communities and the nature that we live in. So those are 3 activities designed specifically for libraries. They have all kinds of extensions and adaptations for different age groups. Beyond those 4 activities in this collection, I put together a whole bunch of activities, not just developed by StarNet, but from other great education resources like SciGirls and other NASA activities that are nature focused. So after you kind of scroll through those first 4 activities, you'll see dozens of more, hands-on nature activities. So I encourage you to check it out, even if you're not using it for this summer theme. There's great stuff in there if you want to do this to celebrate Earth Day. This is just a great resource to bookmark. And I do want to say, for all of the 4 activities highlighted here, there are instructions in Spanish as well. So yeah, check it out. I had so much fun working on this project a few years ago, so I wanted to highlight it here. All right, I see some information in the chat. Awesome. Yes, Becca, thank you so much for your contributions. For those watching the recording, she says that guide would be a wonderful complement to a seed library if you have one of those in your library. Absolutely. The Boulder Library has an excellent seed library. Yeah, print some of those out and have it there with your seed library for people just to take for free. And Becca also said, if you would like to do a community garden at your library, but aren't sure if you would have folks to regularly work in that space, a nature reclaim garden could be a really fabulous alternative. Absolutely. Once you have those native plants growing, there's not a lot of upkeep. You're not having to mow the lawn. You're not having to water so much. And it's, really low impact after you get it, after you remove, the sod and plant everything and such and such. And the iNaturalist BioBlitz, also a really great teen volunteer activity. Absolutely. It's scientists need this data. And it's a really fun way to contribute to real science just in your backyard. All right, that is all of the resources that we have to share with you today. So I'd love to hear a little reflection from you all. I would love to hear what you're most excited for about iREAD's Plant a Seed Read summer theme, or if you want to share something else that you're doing that you're really excited about that other librarians can steal for their summer program, go ahead and put it in the chat. What are you planning to do, or what are you excited about doing this summer? Jenny said, I love the BioBlitz idea.
And I mentioned this before, but combining iNaturalist to do the BioBlitz and then Globe Observer to do tree height observations or land cover observations, because the Globe Observer land cover can give you sort of the big view, and then you use iNaturalist as sort of the looking down at the individual plants and animals level, and then again the tree height, you can do that. So combining these things can be really powerful too.
Kristen, I think absolutely the tree measurement also would be a really great activity. I know so many of us are like desperate to find something to do with our teen volunteers in the summertime. And I found that having like teams, so like a STEM team and a art team and can you can kind of work all of these ideas throughout the summer. One week you do the bio blitz, one week you go out and measure trees, one week you go out and look at the clouds. Um, because I mean, certainly clouds and weather contribute to how things grow. So, it's all together, and having the teens have that kind of hands-on experience that Gemma was talking about earlier will kind of, pardon me, plant the seed for a love of nature and their environment and really help them to look at their community in a different, new, fresh way. Yes, yes. And Annie made a really great point that if you take that teen volunteer info and then you put the information about assisting NASA in your college applications, that's going to look real great. So that's a really good point too.
And there's some other types of globe data that we didn't get into. I mean, there's some soil characterization and soil moisture and other sorts of measurements and things that are a little bit more complicated than the trees tool, but for somebody who's looking for more in-depth for teens across the summer, there's a lot more opportunities as well.
Awesome. We did have a question. Are the materials, the supplies for the garden in a bottle from StarNet included? So yeah, the last activities that we showcased from our online STEM activity clearinghouse, these are just activities for you to use in your planning. So they will not be provided through the iREAD program. But we just wanted to highlight a couple of our favorites that match the theme. So you'll have to prepare all of the materials yourselves. But in our activity guides, we always make sure we have a preparation list, a materials list. So we try to make it as easy for you to go out and find all the materials that you can.
And I found that it's really helpful that if you need something like a bunch of 2-liter bottles, to ask your community to donate them or your colleagues, other staff, you'll quickly find that your desk is covered in 2-liter bottles if you put that call out. So, and there's a lot of different places where you can get seeds either for free or at a discount for educational purposes. So a lot of that stuff, it should be pretty minimal in terms of the way that it's going to impact your budget.
Absolutely. And reaching out to community partners. If you have a local botanical garden coming in to plant seeds with the kids, maybe you can see if they have any extra supplies that they can share. Oh, nice. Yeah. As an example, in the chat, the state agricultural department in Connecticut gave out seeds in April. I love that. Well, when I used to work at the Boys and Girls Club, I was starting a little backyard garden for the kids, and I had no budget. So I just called up a garden center and I just said, hey, do you have any old seed packets you could donate? Because after like a year or two goes by, stores can no longer sell packets of seeds that are a couple years old. But that doesn't mean that the seeds, as long as the seeds in the packets have been kept in a dry, climate controlled location, they will last for many, many years, long after where a retailer can sell them. So I got so many seeds, like more than I knew what to do with, for free completely. And the store felt really good. They're like, great, we were going to throw these away. And they were able to just donate it to us. So that's another way you can try to find materials on a budget. All
And
right.
just
Well,
a
if anyone
lot
has
of
anything, go ahead, Becca.
sorry. A lot of communities have master gardener programs too, and they're a really great resource because they can pull stuff from their own gardens to share with you. And a lot of those folks are committed to native plants, non-invasive plants, and they can help you make that distinction and kind of help you with because not just like the area that you're in, like Claire and Brooks were talking about in terms of like you don't plant a coconut seed in Colorado. They can help, with sun exposure and all of that other stuff, depending on where you're working on things.
Awesome. Yeah, great addition in the chat. Garden clubs. One branch library in my system has a garden that is maintained by the garden club in their neighborhood. I love that. That's so cool. Mindy shares, we are partnering with our special needs school summer camp to install 4 raised garden beds that will be tall enough to park wheelchairs underneath. Very cool. The campers will be here once a week to plant, weed, water, and the campers who are not physically able to participate will be able to get up close to observe. That's so cool. I love hearing what everyone is doing. Everyone has such unique ideas and ways to engage their community.
And we have some community gardens around here that aren't associated with the library, but I bet there might be some connections there too. They're not like next to the library or near there, but that seems like a great idea for extra seeds or extra resources or just expertise.
Yeah, I will say, depending on where you are, if you're able to put in a community garden and promote that, I know here in Denver, when I lived in an apartment, I was applying to community gardens because I didn't have any space. I really wanted to grow my own garden, but there were long wait lists to even get a plot. So if you're able to have that be a resource for your community, especially in urban areas where there's a lot of apartment dwellers, like from my own personal experience, I was so sad the first year I wasn't able to get a plot. So there is demand out there if you're not wanting to care for those gardens yourself due to capacity.
Yeah, there are wait lists on the community gardens here as well, I think.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. We'll stick around, just for a couple more minutes. Feel free to take off early to get back to your day. But if anyone has any other questions or wants to share any ideas, please put them in the chat. We love to hear what you guys are all up to. All right, and I'm going to put that link bank in the chat one more time. This has links to all of our resources and also all of our email addresses. So if you have questions that come up later, please feel free to reach out. I'll put my email in the chat as well. And yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. Oh, I love that idea. We should have a debrief at the end of summer or during the summer to tell how it is going or when. I love doing share-a-thons where we listen to you and we can, hear what amazing things that you did, get feedback for how we can make our resources, better adjusted for libraries or a listserv. Fabulous idea. Yeah, absolutely. I love that so much.
So if you're not already, you're welcome to join our community site where people absolutely post the cool things that they're doing and you can see what other folks are doing. I'll put the link in the chat here in a second. And I'd encourage y'all to sign up and we can make a thread specifically for this summer reading theme.
And pictures. If you have pictures of gardens or kids' terrariums, we'd love to see how everything went. All right, well, huge thanks to our guest speakers. Thank you so much, Becca, Kristen, Gemma. You are awesome. Thank you for showing these amazing resources. This is so fun and cool. I can't wait to go find a library near me to get involved too. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.